Hey, I'm Kevin with Amyad Water Systems. Today we're going to show you how to winterize the Mini Sigma properly. So the first thing we want to do is we want to send it into a manual flush to make sure that the screen is clean before we shut the system down. So of course what you want to do is just go to the ADIP controller, go ahead and push the button, hold it for a couple seconds, that will initiate a flush. When we do the flush, it takes about 10 seconds for it to react. There's our flush. By doing that, that ensures that the screen is clean before we turn everything off. So next thing we want to do is to turn off each one of the valves for the filter. This will take the pressure off the system, and how we take and release the pressure is go ahead and do that one more manual flush. Then we'll be able to release the pressure off of this. It'll click and you'll have the pressure come off. There we go. So the first thing I want to make sure we are doing on this is taking care of the ADIP controller. There are two steps that I recommend. The first step, if you want to do this, is you can remove the controller off and remove the tubes and take this controller and install or store it indoors. If you store it indoors, the most important thing to do is to make sure that we take it in before there's any freezing temperatures. Any freezing temperatures will take and freeze the sensors, and once the sensors are frozen, then that will damage the controller. So to remove this from the controller, this is how we do it. To remove the controller off the filter, the first thing you want to do is there's a 10mm nut and bolt on those. There's two of them. Remove the nut and be able to slide those bolts out. And before you remove it, the thing I would suggest is take a picture. That way you know exactly where each tube's going, because we're going to remove the tubes and we're going to slide this whole unit up and out so you can store it indoors in a heated area. So once we do that, the controller will remove. We've taken our picture to make sure or label all the tubes. So now we're just going to remove each one of the tubes. By removing all the tubes, now you've got the controller where you can take this and store it in a heated area. Again, make sure that it's heated and not a possibility of it freezing. The second way to be able to winterize the ADIP controller correctly is you can leave it on the filter, but there are a few steps to follow. The first thing you want to do is to remove the 3 tubes that are connected to the ADIP controller before there's any freezing temperatures. To remove them, just take the nut off, take each one of the tubes off, and the most important step is to leave these 3 tubes removed for the duration of the season so there's no freezing temperatures. If you do this, it will help winterize the filter correctly. Now, the next thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we're winterizing the solenoid correctly. So to do that is to remove this tube here on the bottom. And what we're going to do is on this one, we're going to show you the 3 different solenoids that we do have. So if it doesn't look like this, we'll show you the other ones. Right underneath, there's a little handle. And what I want you to do is to move the handle back and forth just a couple of times. It will only turn quarter turn to each side. And by doing that, you're releasing any water that's inside of the solenoid. You also have the red handle one, or it might look like this and have a black handle. Again, all you're doing is moving the handle back and forth, or the next one you'll have could be a green handle one. Moving both those back and forth, that will make sure that you're going to winterize those correctly. All right, so the next step that we want to do is we want to ensure that the piston is clear of water. The piston will always have water pushed in on it. That's the design of the filter, so there's water sitting in this piston. So if you do not remove it, that piston can freeze and break. Very easy step to be able to take care of this. What we want to do is take the 2 tubes off. We've got a little bit of water in there. And once we do that, Then we just take the clamp off. So go ahead and take the clamps off. When you do this, there's one important step when you take the clamp off. I've learned this from experience. Make sure you hold the piston while you take off the clamp so that this piston doesn't fall and hit the bottom and break it. So notice we'll get water come out of this. We want that water out of the filter body itself. And then the next thing we want to do is inside here you will see the piston. Okay, so what we want to do with this piston is we want to be able to move it back and forth. So what I'm going to do is grab onto this, and when I do that, I'm pushing down and I'm releasing the water out of the piston. Notice that I'm pointing the filter down, and that's it by design. That piston has a little hollow chamber inside of it. By pushing it down, it will release all the water inside of that chamber. So when there's no water coming out, we're in good shape. All right, we're gonna do a quick summary of what we did to winterize the filter properly. So the first step was you can take the controller off, remove it, store it indoors in a heated area before it freezes. The second thing you can do with the controller is leave the controller on, remove the 3 tubes, and keep them off. And it's important to make sure it's before it freezes, and keep them off for the duration of the full season. The next thing was to winterize the solenoid, move the solenoid handle back and forth a couple times, let that drain. The last one was to take the piston and drain the piston off. If you have any questions at all, please call your dealer or your supplier, or you can also contact amiad.com.